Good afternoon, guys. Just thought I'd put out a quick video on a question that I get a lot, either by email or through the Health Communication Mastery Facebook page, is how do I talk about costs with my client? Now, we all want to get paid, okay, for the hard work that we do, and I know there's lots of practitioners out there who are slaving away night and day, burning the midnight oil, and you want to get paid at the end of it, don't you? Okay, so you've got to talk about costs with your client, and I'm going to give you the top 5 ways that you can do that to make it easy for you, from the outset to all the way to the end where you're negotiating different deals or packages with people. So for those of you who watched my Facebook Live that I put out a couple of weeks ago before Christmas, the most important thing to do is to have upfront set in stone costs with your client before you even have the first appointment. You shouldn't be getting into this sort of negotiation, setting different prices for different people, or even thinking up a number on the fly. That's not very professional. When you go into a shop, you see the price on the pair of shoes or the watch, or or the food that you're going to buy, and you don't have to guess when you get to the counter what you're going to pay for. So it should be the same for your client. It should be set in stone. Ideally, make it part of your initial consultation questionnaire, and if you're not doing that, why are you not doing that? It's really, really useful. It can help get you some information about your client before you even speak to them. More on that in another video that's coming up, but make sure your costs are outlined in there. So those could be in your terms and conditions, they could be in your confidentiality agreement, wherever it is, but it should be somewhere, and you should highlight it to the client before they then sign to work with you. So it's very simple. If it's up front, there's no quibbling later, and it's much easier for you to discuss about costs, and occasionally it does come up later if people's financial circumstances change, if they have signed beforehand to say that they're happy with the cost they're going to pay you. Okay, so the first one's really, really simple. The second one that you can do straight away is to set a set of packages with your client, in terms of contact or for your services that you're offering, so that you're getting paid effectively for all the extra things that you're doing as a practitioner. Now, I know that many of you who are watching this, like me, in the past I used to do a huge amount of work outside of the appointment. I'd be writing plans, analysing information, and frankly, I didn't charge for it, which was crazy when I look back on it. As a kind of a novice dietitian, I didn't really know what I was doing, and now I charge for my time. But that again is outlined to the client at the beginning, so they are aware that if there is extra work to be done, it's going to be charged for. Our solicitor friends all do it all the time. God forbid anybody has to need the work of a solicitor for whatever reason, but when they do, they are fully aware that if they are doing work outside of the appointment, then they have to charge for it. And you can either build that into the time with your clients, or you can make it one set price, or you can do it afterwards in terms of a package follow-up. Okay, so that's the second one. So to make sure that you are charging for time outside of the appointment, and you make that very, very clear to the client straight away. Okay, the third thing that I would like to give you in terms of advice is, personally, I'm not a huge fan of discounts when it comes to one-to-one consultations or working with your client one-to-one. I'm not a huge fan of doing 10% discounts or 20% or 50% or whatever percentage you want to do, because your time and my time in this perspective is valuable, and that should be at a set price. So ideally, I wouldn't try to do that from the outset in terms of discounting your services. Stick to a price and go with it. So that's point number 3. Don't do discounts if possible. You can always do package deals that you do discounts on, but your time is your time, and that should be a set fee. And that again should be, go back to step 1, that should be outlined in your terms and conditions. So that follows in nicely into step number 4, which is don't negotiate on price. Stick to your guns, outline again what your costs are. If somebody tries to barter with you in clinic, they're asking whether you can, maybe do their partner half price, or do somebody else, or maybe they can cut the cost somewhere. Don't get into that with somebody. Just accept point blankly that perhaps this client isn't for you. You shouldn't have to justify or negotiate or barter with somebody. You know, you're not buying fish on a market. You know, your price is your price, and if you feel that your value is correct, then you shouldn't have to negotiate with somebody at all. So don't get into this sort of bartering mentality where you feel like you have to be knocked down. And it's difficult, sometimes it's scary, but you have to stand firm, be willing to end the client relationship if necessary, or not even enter it if somebody's getting into that sort of behaviour with you as well. And the final point I'm going to give you today in terms of the top 5 tips on how to talk about cost with your client is to know your market value. Okay, so this is such an important thing to do, and this is why I'm ending on it. If you don't know how much you're worth, then you're always going to be wondering about what cost and how to talk about costs with your client. You know, a very common question I see on the forums of, you know, dietitians and nutritional therapists and nutritionists and other health practitioners, personal trainers, is people don't ask, you know, how much should I charge? Well, a very, very simple thing to do is to say, put yourself into a completely different category. Imagine you were selling, I don't know, fruits and vegetables, okay? You would need to look at the price of fruits and vegetables being sold by all your competitors and make sure that yours are either a similar price so that people don't feel that your product is completely out with what the normal market value share is, or you're going to have to work really, really hard on justifying exactly why your product is more expensive than your competitor, which is absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. And in fact, I encourage that, because it means that you have to over-deliver in some respects to make sure that your value is justified by the client's cost, and you feel, again, that you're being paid for what you earn. So that's my top 5 tips for you today. A little bonus one to end on is that whatever cost you decide to go with, you've got to be happy with it. You've got to feel like it's worthy of your cost. There's nothing worse than putting out a cost onto your website or telling a client cost and you feel like that you're being underpaid. If you need to do that, raise your prices and then over deliver in terms of services. Okay, I hope that that's been useful to you. Find me some questions, send me a message on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter if you've got any points to make on this, and I'd love to hear about more of your comments below on how you negotiate costs with your client. And until next time, see you later.